Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 22 My Team Career Mode. This is episode number 4 from Imola. If you guys did miss the previous one at the brand new Australian Grand Prix layout, then be sure to go check that one out before you see this one. That was a really crazy episode because we also had a wet to dry race, so we actually experienced every single weather that we could have done, and every tyre, the full wets, the intermediates, and the slicks in that entire race. And of course, it was at the new Albert Park layout, which was quite a lot of fun. It was a real difficult race for our car in the first half. Got better in the second half, and in the end, we came home for a solid result, I guess, in terms of the recovery drive from where things were initially, where we were fighting for last place, and then obviously at the end got towards fighting the Aston Martin for P14, was it? But with that episode, we have finally now earned enough acclaim on the team acclaim level to unlock the first sponsor. And having had a look at all the kind of weekly incomes and balancing up the kind of goal bonuses, I think we're going to go for the sponsor, where the goal bonus, the objective we have to reach, is at least achieving a top 14 in the races. If we look back at the 3 Grand Prix we've had, the lowest position we have been has been P14. And to be honest, you know, the way I felt at the start of Australia, I don't think things could get much worse than that ever again. They might equal it, but they can't get worse than that, I don't think. So I think P14 is a sensible objective that we could definitely achieve many times over in the next couple of races until this sponsor runs out and we have to renew it. And also, to be fair, it's a pretty snazzy logo as well. I think fits really well with our car around it. Nice to add a few more sponsors stickers around the car to make it look a bit more fuller in this first season. Going into this race weekend, though, it might be a bit of a challenge because we are going to maybe have to look at changing engine components. Whether that means a penalty, I don't think so, because we can maybe move to a new column within the pool that we've already got. But depending on how, you know, qualifying goes, you know, we've got a sprint race there involved as well. Maybe there's scope to take penalties strategically to try and, you know, limit the damage basically and still have a pretty decent race weekend. But going into this one then, obviously choosing all our different activities in the timeline, trying to, like, you know, at this early stage of the season, I'm always looking to try and boost the acclaim, get some extra resource or cash, and kind of, you know, balance, you know, if I have to lose some cash but gain some resource or gain some acclaim, just leveling that up as much as I think I can with the right choices. And of course, always trying to train up our teammate with a, you know, boosted acclaim and focus as much as we can. And then we were asked for the very first time, who would I consider my rival at the moment? Now, we have been having a lot of battles in the McLarens, especially Daniel Ricciardo. So although it would be tempting to choose Lando for the sake of obviously my link with him and Quadrant, I decided, because we actually have been battling Ricciardo a lot, I think we're going to choose Ricciardo as our rival. I think based off the previous races, I think the majority of the time we could take the fight to him. Very much in, at least in the race. Maybe quali might be difficult, but we'll see. Upgrades then. Talking about upgrades, we're going to purchase another chassis upgrade. This one on the weight redistribution, because we've already had 3 upgrades on the weight reduction, and the next one along I think is too expensive for us to get right now. And to be honest, I don't want to bottleneck us too much into chassis, so I thought we'd go for that smaller upgrade. And then we've also gone for engine power with the spark plugs, because I was tempted to go for a further drag reduction upgrade, because I do have one available to us. We've already got a pending front downforce upgrade, remember, to balance out the aero, but I was tempted by drag reduction. But the thing is, I then remembered, if we can get that engine power upgrade done, that will then unlock the branch where we can upgrade ERS, which is a huge thing for the race, you know, in terms of race pace, being able to use more ERS through the races with those upgrades. So that's my thinking there of why we've gone for that. And you saw in the background there, in terms of the department event with Drogovic, I went for some awareness, hopefully for him, to just keep boosting that, you know, because when you've got a bit of a crazy race, that's when awareness could help him as an AI driver to maybe make his way through, get a cheeky, you know, point or two here and there. And that could just be this race weekend, because we've got a bit of chaos probably coming up with a sprint race and then the normal race here around Imola. But first and foremost, you can see we have gone back into the F1 life sphere, the supercars, the Pirelli hot laps, and this time we're doing a checkpoint challenge. So something a little bit different to the average speed zone we had in the previous 2 Pirelli hot laps that we've done around the race weekend. So this one, pretty simple, explanatory. We have to get to each checkpoint within the allotted time. You can see 42 seconds right now, having a bit of difficulty on the rear end here and getting used to this car around this circuit. But by the end of the second lap, we're getting there, and we're getting very close though to to the time ending, we've got to get over 10,250 meters to get the goal. You can see we're on 8,600, 700. So, you know, this is going to be very, very close. We're within the last 15 seconds now of the timer. So this is going to be right on the cusp. But I guess that's how they've coded it and designed it and chose the target numbers, because we get the last checkpoint just in time to give us about 12 seconds to carry on and get enough target distance to get the gold just before we run out of time. So once again, we're able to get the maximum claim and cash from this event, and early doors in this career mode series, I'll be doing as many of these as I can to actually get that. Maybe in later seasons when we have far too much acclaim and cash to even use, then there's no need to do it, and the novelty's worn off by then. But to be fair, as I've said many times, right now it's a nice little breather, I guess, and a nice little tease into the race weekend. Speaking of getting into the race weekend, then though, with the upgrades that we've had come in for this episode, so not the ones we've purchased now, the ones that we purchased probably 2 episodes ago at Bahrain or Saudi Arabia, they've finally come in, and so it's meant that we're right on the cusp there, pretty much on top of AlphaTauri and McLaren on the R&D graph there. So on paper, theoretically, could be right in the fight with those two teams, but we're going to have to see how the car takes to Imola, how we take to Imola in this new era of cars. You know, every single circuit now is going to be a massive new challenge compared to last year's game. There's no guarantees of previous form from F1 2021 into this one. And we've got quite an overcast Imola at the moment, so there is some rain lurking around. Might come later on this Friday, remember, because this is qualifying on a sprint weekend, so this is technically Friday in the game that we've done for one practice session. We're straight into quali, and to be honest, even though I knew this was coming with Imola and the other 2 rounds we've got here in this season for the sprint weekends, it's still a very odd feeling, you know, just jumping into quali knowing that I've got a short race coming up and then the main event. But we're nonetheless trying to do the best job we can, as always, in Q1 to maybe break through into Q2. Qualified P15, that would get us through, but by the end of this session, as that was my last lap I could get in on time, we are knocked out along with Drogovic. But to be honest, I think it was a bit of a weird session, you know, a bit colder with the overcast conditions. Ricardo, our new rival, we beat him anyway, even though we've been knocked out. We did beat him, as he's gone even lower in P20. But I think there was definitely more there with the car, and I just don't think myself and Drogovic extracted as much as we could. And I'm hoping we've got more to come in the sprint race, and then obviously the proper Grand Prix as well. But now we come to a point in the video where I need to admit a massive howler and a mistake, because I actually forgot what the rules were in F1 with the engine penalties on a sprint weekend. I thought I was being really clever and taking all these penalties to start at the back of the grid for the sprint race, and then effectively the sprint races are qualifying for the main Sunday Grand Prix. But no, these penalties will affect me for Sunday's race no matter what happens in the sprint now. So yeah, I kind of had a bit of a blunder there. So no matter what happens in this sprint race, we'll start at the back of the grid for the main Grand Prix. That also does kind of give me a bit of leeway of now I can attack everyone like an absolute animal, and I don't care really if something happens, because I know I'm going to start at the back anyway for Sunday's race, and we have a fresh engine. So there's a tiny silver lining there, and maybe we could use that aggression to get, some points maybe in the sprint race, if we're really that good. I don't know, but yeah, bit of a mistake from us. We'll learn from it, but just wanted to show you guys that, and also call out, if any of you also would make the same mistake, because I just forgot that the engine penalty rules were a bit, a bit different to what I logically thought they'd be like on the sprint weekend. So anyway, with that, let's go to our first sprint race of the season at Imola.
So it is all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Max Verstappen lines up alongside. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Sainz, Perez, Sir Lewis Hamilton and Russell, Bottas, Mick Schumacher, Magnussen and Lando Norris, Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Guan Yu Zhou and Tsunoda, Vettel, Albon, Pierre Gasly and Felipe Drugovich, the owner driver, Ricardo, Latifi, and Lance Stroll brings the grid to a close. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We will soon find out.
This is effectively an F1 sprint where I just really don't actually care what happens in terms of I can just throw everything in the kitchen sink knowing that whatever happens, I'm starting in the back anyway for tomorrow's proper Grand Prix. So let's just go out there, absolutely send it, and maybe with a bit of luck, you never know, we could just end up maybe near those sprint points that are on offer today on the Saturday. Here we go then to 5 red lights to our F1 sprint here at Imola. Lights out and away we go. 11 laps flat out on the medium tyre for everyone. It's a decent start for us versus our teammate Drogovic, then getting boxed in a little bit by Pierre Gasly, having to try and force the room on the right hand side, then really not too sure where to go here. Albon makes it 3 wide. Bit of a sketchy moment there for Sebastian Vettel, and I'm pretty sure he made a bit of contact that could maybe have some damage for the German. We'll have to see as we go on to the end of this lap, but we're going to get Albon really having to give him a big old squeeze into the left-hander. Those Williams cars have actually been very punchy in the opening laps, I must say, in the last 2 episodes, as we now try and kind of follow a similar vein and punch around the outside of Yuki Tsunoda. Just caught the Japanese driver completely unawares as he's caught up behind Sebastian Vettel, and we're into now P15. That'll turn into P13 though as we cross the line, and we've got 2 people who've made pit stops ahead of us, so already maybe a little bit of luck there of people giving us free positions, because effectively if you make a pit stop in this sprint, you're pretty much out of the race basically, and you've given up your position. So thank you very much to those drivers, and we're doing our best right now to maybe have a go at Vettel and the cars ahead of us. Vettel's slow as Guan Yu Zhou gets crossed up a little bit, fighting and defending against Schumacher, and in the end that will actually help us overtake Vettel, as in a similar, very similar way, we overtake him like we did with Yuki Tsunoda on the outside there, having been pinched in by the car ahead of him. Guan Yu Zhou though now caught up behind Schumacher. You can see actually maybe Guan Yu Zhou was attacking Schumacher when that incident happened, because it looks like the Alfa Romeo has a bit more pace to maybe overtake the Haas. But can we join the fight and maybe make it 3 wide? It's going to be very fine on the grass on the right hand side to Schumacher on the inside there. We're literally centimetres away, but we made a pin perfect overtake. 2 moves for the price of 1, and in the end I think that was Guan Yu Zhou who got a bit of contact with Schumacher on the inside, but we had a ultimately very clean overtake, literally the most perfect racing line, just to, you know, shoot it through round the outside, get to the next apex, and we literally didn't even make any contact whatsoever with Schumi. He was too busy making contact with Guan Yu Zhou. Meanwhile now we've got some fighting with Carlos Sainz versus Sergio Perez, the Ferrari on the inside. Oh, he's been pinched though by the Red Bull, and he's got damage. The Ferrari trying to get up into P3. It's Leclerc in the lead from Verstappen. Surprise, surprise. Leclerc dominating so far in this career series in Season 1. But Sainz and Ferrari as a whole have been pretty strong so far. He tried to make it P3, but damage. That will be a free position for everyone behind him. So that's going to be really good for us. That'll shoot us up into P9 maybe, as now we see a ferocious fight going on between Gasly, Schumacher, Vettel, Ricciardo. All those cars so close together. Drogovic is in there, our teammate, as he's still having to finish the move he's trying to make on Ricciardo on the outside. This will be for P15. Get the elbows out on the exit, and then now he can maybe have a go at Vettel, Schumacher, and Gasly. You know, if he's able to clear those cars, because clearly these 3 are getting into a bit of a squabble that's slowing them down. You know, Drogovic could be as high as well P12 right now, where Pierre Gasly is, and Gasly will have an engine failure for the 2nd time in 4 races. Gasly's engine has gone pop. It went at Bahrain, and it's gone here at Imola. Gasly's having no luck in this season, and that's the 2nd time the Red Bull powertrain badged Honda engine has gone and blown up. Concerning maybe for myself, you know, our team, Red Bull as a team, obviously not ideal when, you know, Ferrari are dominating and they can't really afford to lose points. But at the moment, yeah, I mean, all the problems seem to be staying with AlphaTauri at least, so it's kind of, you know, cobbled all into one team. Let's hope it stays that way. But lap 9 of 11, and we're up into P9. As you may have seen there on the bottom left on the mini-map, Carlos Sainz was in the pits, so he's given us a free position, the Ferrari has, and that's elevated a lot of people as well. Hamilton now is up into P4, and look at this, he's actually on the back of Sergio Perez onto the last lap of this F1 sprint. Can Hamilton get a surprise podium here at Imola in the Mercedes car? He's got DRS open, pressurizing Perez on the last lap, and Perez has felt the pressure. He's locked up, and Hamilton is round the outside. What a move there, and what a great sequence for Mercedes to get a podium here on the last lap of this F1 sprint as, Perez with a really bad lock-up. Hamilton very close to making contact with Checo, but he's got, well, I say a podium, he's got the 3rd place in the sprint race, which will mean the 2nd row of the grid for tomorrow's race. You've got to remember it's not actually an actual legit podium, but it is 3rd place in this race nonetheless, which is still very impressive for Mercedes and Hamilton, especially after the struggles he had at Jeddah. But he's bounced back, obviously, from Australia to now, and that's really great. Pressurising on the last lap, getting it done, and Perez, well, he felt the pressure there from behind of the Silver Arrow. Meanwhile, for us, we've soaked up all the pressure from Schumacher behind us to hold through into P9 on the F1 sprint. That is sadly, though, not enough to get even 1 point, because points are awarded down to 8th place in the F1 sprint. So a little bit frustrating, but Ocon was so far ahead of us. That top 8 pack was in a different world. So I'm just really happy with going from, what was it, P19 up to P9, 10 positions gained. So that's quite promising. And 11 laps, remember, on the mediums, which is the same tyre we might start the Grand Prix on Sunday. So, you know, for tomorrow's race, starting from the back with a fresh engine, if we just try and emulate the aggression whilst, you know, keeping our nose clean, knowing that we have more of a Grand Prix to go, you know, we can still get a pretty damn good result. You know, Drogovic up into P13, showing that myself and him, we didn't show our true pace on Saturday. Neither of us did. Both of us gained significant positions, so I think both of us could have a very strong race tomorrow. You got to remember, he'll actually start where he's finished here, +1 position, because I'll be sent to the back, so Drogovic could be starting from P12 on the grid for tomorrow's race. So he actually has a huge chance for some actual points, maybe his first points of the season. That could be quite shocking. That could be quite a good feel factor for the race tomorrow. Let's go to the grid.
Hello there and welcome back to Imola, home circuit of the Scuderia Ferrari. We expect to see a lot of local supporters in red today. They've all turned out for what we have every expectation will be a sensational event here at the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. A lap of Imola, anti-clockwise of course, unlike most Formula One circuits, will take our drivers round 3.1 miles of track. 19 turns, 9 right-handers and 10 left. Drivers will need to be precise at the hairpin turn 7, given the subsequent uphill section. Without a good exit from that corner, they'll lose a lot of time on that stretch. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Fantastic effort from Charles Leclerc yesterday, and it's put him on pole, edging out Max Verstappen, who will start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Hamilton, Perez, George Russell and Magnussen, Bottas, Ocon, Tsunoda and Sebastian Vettel, Drogovic, Sainz, Nicholas Latifi and Fernando Alonso, Norris, Albon, Daniel Ricciardo and Mick Schumacher, Joe, the owner driver, they've taken a grid penalty, Stroll and Pierre Gasly picks up the final grid slot today. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? It's race day yet again, and joining me for a chat, Anthony Davidson. And our racers are certainly in for a rough day today. What will you be watching for as they go down into turn 1?
Well, the start of the race is always one of the most nerve-wracking parts. You have to hope that everyone is able to get off to a clean start, and this is possibly the trickiest part of the entire race. So many drivers in such a small space, and finding your braking point into turn 1 as well. It's a testament to the driver's skill that there aren't more incidents.
So we finally come now to the main event, the actual Grand Prix here at Imola. And of course we're starting, well, not at the back of the grid because Stroll and Gasly had penalties themselves, but we're in P20. So we're 1 position back from where we started the sprint race, effectively, because of my blunder of the whole engine penalties. If we didn't have the engine penalties, we could have been starting this race in P9, which would have been insane, but it is what it is. I've learned from my mistake, and you're about to see I almost make a different mistake here on the formation lap here, because I'm warming my tyres up, and I almost deck the car into the wall. So We've already had a close call and the race hasn't even started yet, so that's quite promising. But no, we're going to forget about that. We've parked up perfectly and we're going to put the mistake of the engine penalties behind us and just go into this race with the same energy that we started the sprint race from. Let's just go out there, send it, and see where we end up. To 5 red lights, and we're underway for the Imola Grand Prix. A pretty good start versus the Alfa Romeo. Tiny bit of wheel spin, but we control it, getting close to the wall. Schumacher backs out of it behind Ricciardo. Quite a few drivers backing out as we're getting all boxed in, and it gets rather tight. 3 abreast again into this corner. It is in a similar fashion. Alonso is in the position Vettel was in the F1 sprint. That was kind of like deja vu watching that as we squeeze Lando Norris now in the second McLaren. We're up ahead of both McLarens now in this race, so they very much are both our rivals, I guess, from that question earlier. Meanwhile, Drogovic up in P10. So I think he started P12 then, wasn't it? So he's gained 2 positions there. So Felipe already in a points-paying position. So right now it is looking good. Fernando Alonso being squeezed out by Nicholas Latifi, and Alonso's slow then because of that, and we're going to use that to our advantage, catch him sleeping a little bit, and we're into P14 then. Who would have thought Latifi actually helped me out there by squeezing Fernando at the top of the hill? I'm going to thank him by, well, overtaking him. I want to go to the inside there. We had to really commit. I think we dipped a tyre into the grass for a moment there, but wanting the inside line to make sure we can squeeze the Williams out. But you got to say, Latifi's AI in this series so far, he's actually had some lightning starts. He was higher than us for most of this Reading Grand Prix, remember? And he's, here in P14, 2 laps in, but the virtual safety car now has been deployed due to some debris, so that's an early virtual that'll go on for a whole lap, that is, because it pretty much ends at the same position in the circuit where it started. And we've gained a little bit of time on Ocon, I think, in that virtual safety car, because it's generally, if it ends as you go into a corner, you can gain a little bit of time. And now we're in a good position to attack Ocon. We both got DRS. He goes defensive. We stay on the racing line. Ocon's compromised his, and we get the tighter turn in to then dance the car from the right to the left-hand side of the circuit and then get to the outside for the next right-hander. So Ocon almost set himself up for that overtake there because he just took the inside line and committed to it, and I just stayed on the racing line and just got a much better run through that sequence of corners. Drogovic may do the same. We're on the outside again. Will it be a similar move? I think it might be. No! Drogovic actually does very well to place his car and block me off. I didn't also do that well at braking early. I probably should have broke a little bit earlier to get the tight turn in there, but Drogovic just with a better placement versus Ocon there, so does very well indeed. So we're going to have to recompose and go again because we lost a bit of time then going wide in the corners after that. Meanwhile, lap 7, Leclerc leads the way, but Verstappen right behind. Russell going for a move on Hamilton maybe. The Mercedes are fighting and Hamilton is gone off into the gravel. Mercedes were fighting and Hamilton's felt the pressure from George Russell and has gone off circuit. That'll be a free position for everyone as Hamilton is stranded in the gravel trap, and that will be enough for the FIA to call out the full course yellow. It's a safety car, the full safety car, as Russell tried to attack Hamilton for P3, almost went for the gap that was closing, backed out of it, and then Hamilton just double lock up there, was maybe too concerned with Russell in his mirrors and just misjudged it, and he just got into the gravel and beached it. And so the safety car is out, and we are up into P11, Drogovic in P10, and now we can see on the left-hand side and the mini-map, Verstappen and Perez, they've come in for a pit stop, a free pit stop, but an extra pit stop under the safety car for the soft compound that was. The strategy is medium to hards, but they've gone for the soft compound, so they'll have to make another stop in this race. And the thing is, there's also forecast for rain maybe, and you can see as we round the last 2 corners to get on green again and go racing, the rain's already started to fall. So is that a massive howler from Red Bull Racing to pit under that safety car for the soft tyres? So with that potential mistake for Red Bull, Drogovic is now in P7, we're in P8 on the restart here for the Grand Prix, and across the line using a lot of ERS that we saved under that safety car, we're going to punch past Drogovic up into P7 of this Grand Prix. I can't believe this at the moment in this early stage of the race. Still very early, I will admit, but we're both in the points, in some solid points here. I really hope we can continue this. Alonso Carlo's now out of the Grand Prix. He's retired with an engine failure, I think, as well, along with Gasly earlier on, and that will bring out a second virtual safety car. So we've had 3 instances of safety cars, 2 virtual, 1 full fat one, and, well, it's going very well, but the rain is falling, and with how our car performed around Australia, that could be worrying in terms of falling away and losing this, well, great position for both myself and Felipe. But right now, let's not worry about that, and let's get back to the racing, because the virtual safety car will be ending, and across the line, the way the delta time works, we can be side by side with Tsunoda. As we went green, we timed that to perfection. I overtook Tsunoda as soon as we went green, and so we are just driving on the absolute limit and trying to maximize everything. Virtual safety car deltas, the safety car, other people's blunders and mistakes, and right now that's paying us big dividends. P6 for us. Drogovic can't get Tsunoda there as I tried to squeeze Yuki out, but he's remained in P8, but ahead of us, so we're not squeezing out. Sainz has squeezed out Magnussen, and that made me start thinking about trying to catch the Haas, but immediately already losing the back end, because now the rain is starting to settle down and the track is getting very slippery. And on lap 15, the track is pretty much undrivable as things are getting very sketchy on the rear. Even on the front, it's not responsive, and it is time now to go to the intermediates. And when I looked at the forecast for this race, there was only 1 icon for rain, so I thought the rain could have just passed through and we could have all kind of made it through on the dries. But no, obviously we know the weather forecast isn't completely accurate in my team career mode. Just like in real life, there is a curveball sometimes that can be thrown in, and looks like the rain's here to stay. It's only a good turn in for us, not the absolute optimum with the purple, but it'll be okay. Unfortunately, I did have to double stack with Drogovic. The annoying thing that we still can't tell our teammate to stay out or come in a lap earlier, but to be honest, because of the crossover periods now, we both would have had to double stack anyway, because there's no way he would have stayed out anyway and kept his position. So probably better for him just to bring onto the inters, but that's unfortunate. I'm really hoping that Drogovic can still make his way up the order from those lost positions and lost time in the pit stop with the double stack and make it into the points, because we are still very much in the points as we get back ahead of the likes of Verstappen, who, you know, him and Perez have still, you know, had to swallow that blunder of making that free pit stop under the safety car, because, yeah, now with this inter pit stop, their strategy of going aggressive on the softs has not worked out, because now they've had to go to inters and they're behind a load of cars they wouldn't have been behind if it wasn't for that pit stop. So all in all, Red Bull's loss, maybe, well, Ferrari's gains and a lot of people's gains, but Leclerc remains in the dominant lead of this race. Russell in P2, Bottas in P3, but for not much longer as Sainz is recovering. Remember, from that crash he had in the F1 sprint, he's been trying to make up positions all through this race, and finally now on lap 18 he's got back onto a podium position. But Bottas was doing amazing to be up in P3, and Russell, well, he'd be loving life in P2 in the Mercedes car. What an achievement for him and his teammates down in P15 after that blunder into the gravel trap. Meanwhile, we're watching there Verstappen trying to overtake Ocon as he makes his way through. Perez is even worse off down in P19, but Verstappen is there in P9. He's going to attack us eventually, and the GOAT Tiffy is in P10. He is in the points. I'm hoping, though, Drogovic, who's not in the points anymore due to the double stack we did, I hope he can maybe catch him at least and get 1 point, because he deserves it after how he's performed in the F1 sprint and the start of this Grand Prix. For us, though, we are chasing after Magnussen, who's looking a bit slow. We're gaining, but we're not wanting to overuse our ERS too much, and so we just don't get close enough. And I go a little bit wide here, as Verstappen, you can see on the top left, is now overtaking Tsunoda, so he's made his way through 3 cars up into P7, and eventually he'll be right behind us. And you can see now, lap 22, Magnussen's pulled away from us again, 1.5 the gap. So it was a very weird thing that I had some pace for a little bit, for a couple of laps, and we closed the gap from like 2 seconds to pretty much being there within half a second to Magnussen. And as we, well, kind of wave Verstappen by, because I know there is no way I'm going to be able to defend a Red Bull for the remaining, 9 laps of this Grand Prix. It'd be stupid to battle him too much. So I wave him by, but we're just losing so much pace now to Magnussen. So I don't know where it went, because there was a brief glimmer of pace for us versus the Haas, and now it's kind of gone. As now, though, that could change everything. 7 laps to go, and the second safety car is out. So we've had 2 full safety cars now, and 2 virtual, and Verstappen's in! Verstappen Verstappen's into the pits. Oh, did he make contact with Magnussen? It must have been. Two very aggressive drivers we know in real life. Have they made contact? And that is why the safety car's out, because of debris, Mark, my engineer, told me. And that's why Verstappen, with his entire front wing off on the back end of Magnussen. It's a mixture of Magnussen brake checking a little bit, but maybe more so Verstappen kind of being unsighted under braking. And so that is a gift from Verstappen and Magnussen there, because now we're back into P6 and we're right on the back of Magnussen with only 4 laps to go. And the very interesting scenario is that it's not raining anymore, the track is drying, and my engineer has been telling me it might be time for the crossover, but there are not enough laps, so we might be on inters on a dry track by the end of it. Here we go though, on the restart, Albon, the lapped car, blocks off Magnussen, and so we get up into P5 in the race. Meanwhile, Russell in P2 goes deep, he's gone deep, and Sainz overtakes him. We overtake Bottas, because Valtteri Bottas gets held up by the Ferrari, slipping through against the Mercedes car, and it was pinpoint accuracy from us on the inside there. It was a very similar move to the one we made at Ocon at the start of the race, you remember, into that corner, just letting the car on the inside have the tighter line, and we just go through on the outside of the exit of that complex of corners. But we have to do some defensive work now. A lot of ERS usage up the hill, blocking the inside line, defending the inside apex. Bottas goes wide and he makes a mistake because he's now wobbled around on the front end. I look back just in time to see Bottas trying to control the front end of his car, and Magnussen's overtaken him, which is better for us because the Haas car is slower, so he'll hold up Bottas. As now we watch Latifi go a bit wayward and he's slow. Oh no, what a disaster for the Canadian in the Williams. He was on for 2 points, and in the cruelest way ever, on the second last lap of this race, his engine or his car's failed him, mechanical issue, and he's out the Grand Prix. His teammate was nowhere in P20. That would have been an insane result for Latifi versus his teammate, and just generally where that Williams car is, and he's out in the cruelest fashion. But that means Drogovic is up into P9, so as long as we can hold this through and he can hold that through, we could be on for a double points finish here at the Imola Grand Prix. It's a 1-2 for Ferrari. Once again it looks like nailed on as we go on to the last lap of the Grand Prix. Russell with an amazing podium still. He'll be annoyed it's not second, but third is still pretty amazing in the Mercedes car. And then here we are in P4 against all the odds. We qualified in what was it, 19 on Friday, did the F1 sprint, didn't even get our position on the F1 sprint because we got sent to the back of the grid with engine penalties. We fought our way back. We got a bit of luck with the 2 safety cars, the Red Bull blunder and the virtual safety cars. But sometimes in this sport, you got to have a bit of luck to get the result. And we're going to come through for a highest position of the season in the game so far. P4 here at Imola. And it's a double points finish as Felipe Drogovic, I believe, finishes up in P9. What a race weekend for our team. What a Sunday. Double points. P4 for us though. P4. What a race. What a race.
And that's it then for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. And what a sensational victory they've managed to pull off here. Tell me, Anne, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I feel like consistency was probably the key today. There's being quick, and then there's being quick lap after lap after lap. If you can do that, you can capitalise on other people's errors without making many of your own. And that's an approach that can push you a long way up the field.
Ferrari are at it again. An excellent performance at today's Grand Prix. And they're certainly a team that know what they're doing out there.
Well, it's another win for Leclerc and Ferrari. They are literally just steamrolling this entire championship so far. Red Bull, I mean, they're not even helping themselves. Forget about the performance patch. Forget about, you know, just the upgrades in the season. I don't know what the strategy plays were for both Red Bulls today. It was just horrendous for them, and they just have themselves to blame. They haven't even limited the damage. They've basically given Ferrari an open goal, and they've taken it with a 1-2 there. Russell in P3, but I'm just reveling in the P4. Overall, though, adding up the points with the sprint race and the normal race, we finish up with the 5th classification in terms of points gotten there. Magnussen got 1 more point than us because he did get a better result in the sprint. And you can see their confirmation, Drogovic did indeed get his very first points of his F1 career, let alone alone for the team and this season. 2 points for him. He deserves that. He deserved more, but it was unfortunate with the double stack on the intermediates. Those kind of situations, you can't afford to stay out on the dries when it very clearly is wet. So it was either that or probably even worse, really, if he didn't double stack with us. But, you know, still some points. Very much deserved. For us, a massive bit of luck. I will fully admit that. But we also were quite perfect in terms of waiting for the right time to make the moves, like that Bottas overtake when he got caught up with the Ferrari and the Mercedes, and it's gotten us P4 there. But thank you to Red Bull as well with that huge blunder. But what an episode. Yeah, if every sprint round is like that, then bring them on. We've got 2 more later in the season. If you guys have enjoyed this episode, though, hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.